Am I audible to you? I hope I am audible. Can you give me a yes in the chat if you are able to open Google Colab Notebook? The link is in the chat only. This Colab link, collab.research.google. You have to just click on this and open a new notebook. That's it. Have you guys opened it? Can you give me a yes if you have opened it? Hello, guys. Please give me a yes if you have opened it so that I can proceed further. Please reply in the chat. Please. I want to know if you are able to open this notebook because you have to write a code with me in order to understand the things. Okay. So I hope that you all have opened. If you have not, you can write no in the chat. I'll help you with that. Okay. So now Python is like a programming language. It's not, I'll not say like, it's a programming language. So you can use Python to do all sorts of calculations and everything. Suppose I have to store marks of few students. So what can be done? I can store marks like mark M1, M2, and M3. So what are these M1, M2, and M3? I'll call them nothing but the containers. So what are containers? Containers are nothing. One second. Containers are what? So when you buy some chawal or something at your house, you store them in a container, right? So similarly, if you want to store something, if you want to store the age of a student, if you want to store the name of a student, you want to store marks of a student, you will use a variable. Variables are nothing but containers. So let's first cover what variables only. Okay. So what are variables? Variables are nothing but containers. Containers may we put some sort of things like rice or milk or something. Similarly, in variables, we put values. Okay. Now, this is one variable that I have made. I'm calling it M1. Okay. And I'm storing the marks of student here. Okay. So I am storing the marks of a particular student. Let me call that student Muskan only. So Muskan got 100 marks in science. Okay. So this variable M1 is storing what? 100. So if I print out M1, yeah, if I print out the value of M1, it should give me what? It should give me what is inside M1. So inside M1, I have nothing but the value of 100. So if you want to run the program, you have to just click on that play button and it will run for you. So let me see if it's running. Till then, I'll write a new code. Now I stored a number in the variable. M1 was my variable and I stored a number in it. When I printed M1, it gave me the thing that was inside that variable, that was 100. Now, suppose I want to store my name. So I want you all to store your name as well. So I'll create a new variable called as name and there I'll store my name. So for storing something that is text, in programming languages, you call text as strings. Okay. So if you are storing text or strings, you will use single quotation marks to store them. So I'll write name is equals to Muskan. If I print out name now, So it should give me nothing but the value that is inside this name. So the value that is inside name is what? It is Muskan. So it should give me this. So if I print this out, you can see I'm getting what? Muskan, right? Okay. Now, suppose I want to print out that Muskan got 100 marks in science. Okay. So let's create a new variable called as subject. And in that subject, I am storing my favorite subject. Let us store our favorite subject. My favorite subject was science. So I'll write science. Subject is equals to science. And I'll just write, I'll print out subject to see if it's giving me the correct value or not. So when I'm printing out subject, it should print out this value. Now you can ask me, Muskan, what happens if you don't follow this you can say alphabetic you don't follow the uppercase and the lowercase step. For example, here the name of my variable starts with lowercase, that means s is small. But if I write print subject, so let's see what it will get. Here I have written capital S and here I have written small s. So you can see it is giving me an error that name subject is not defined. That means it is telling me that you don't have a variable called as subject. So what should I give you as the output? I don't know. Okay. So your variables are case sensitive. So if you are making a variable with a small s, then always use that to print out the output. Okay. So I am printing subject here. Okay. Now, suppose I want to print out my last name as well. So for my last name, I will make another variable and I will call it L name. That is the short for last name. And I'll just call it Handa. Okay. Now, last name is Handa. Okay. Now, I want to print out both my first name. My first name was stored in this variable called as name, and my last name is stored in L name. So if I want to print out two things, I will use comma here. Print N name, print name and L name. So it will first see what is the value that is inside the name. So you can see the value that is inside the name is Muskan. Then it will check what is the value inside this. So the value inside L name is Handa. So it should give me Muskan and Handa as the output. Okay, it's giving me that Muskan and Handa. Can you guys try to print your name like this? Make two variables, one for your first name and one for your last name. Store your first name in one variable, store your last name in another variable, put a comma between both of them and print it out. And if you're able to do that, you have the option of giving a thumbs up here in the chat. So please do this thumbs up and send it in the chat so that I can understand that you are able to get what I'm trying to teach you. Okay? Is it fine? Will you try? Will you guys please try to print out the values? Your first name and the last name. Okay? Store your first name in one variable, store your last name in another variable, and print out both of them together to get your full name. Very easy. I'll give you 2 minutes. Please try that. If you are done with printing out your names, please give me a please give me a yes in the chat section so that I can understand that you are done. Everyone in the meeting, Akansh, Ajay, Ashish, Durga, Kalyan. Hi, Kalyan. Okay, Kalyan was there in my SQL batch as well. Hello, Kalyan. Mahi Bhai and Sumi. Can you please try to print and give me a yes in the chat if you are able to print this out? Hi, Kalyan. I hope you are trying. Give me a yes in the chat if you are able to print this out. Okay, great. So now what I'll do is I want to print out that, I'll give you one example. I want to print out that Muskan Handa got 100 marks in science. So that means I have to print out what? I have to print out the value that is inside my name. Okay. And that is inside my name, then last name. Then I have to print out what? I have to print out got. Then I have to print out what? 100 is stored in what? 100 is stored here in my M1. So I have to print out M1, then marks, then M, and then I have to print out my subject. My subject is science. So I have to print out both variables and some text together. So if you want to do that, what you can use plus operator for that. I'll show you. It's a very cool thing that you can do with Python. So we can just write print name. Whenever you are printing out any variable, you don't need to put quotation marks there. Okay, remember that. So my name and last name, both here, name and last name, both that are here, they are variables. So I will not put a comma or a quotation mark here. So I'll just write name plus last name plus. So name plus last name will give me what? Let me see what it will give me. If I print this out, it's giving me Muskan and Handa. That means it has added two strings together. Okay, so Muskan and Handa are stick together. Now, if I want to write plus, and then I want to write got. So if I want to write got, so got is a string. I have not stored it in a variable, right? So I will just use quotation marks here, got. Then again, I will use plus. 100 is stored in M1. So I will just write M1. Then again plus. Then I will use this marks. This is not stored anywhere. This is my string. So I will put it in quotation marks. Marks. And in is also not stored anywhere. So I'll just write marks in. And then my science thing is stored in what? It is stored in subject. So I will just use plus and I will write subject. So let's see what we are getting now. Okay, one thing that is the error there, I'll show you. It is showing that we can only concatenate string, not into string. That means you can only add two strings. Okay, so if I remove M1, M1 has the value of a number, right? M1 shows 100. 100 is not a text. 100 is a number. So it is telling me you cannot mix strings and numbers together. Int is a number, like int means integer, if you know about a little bit of maths. So int is an integer and integer is a number. So you cannot add both integers and text together. So if I remove this now, let's print it now. You're getting Muskan Handa got marks in science. You are getting the output. Now the only issue that you're getting is we want some space between my name and my last name. So if I want some space, what I can do is I can use a plus symbol and just put empty here, empty thing here, and then again put a plus symbol here. That means print out my name here first, that is Muskan, then print out an empty space after Muskan, and then print out my last name. So if I run this now, you can see Muskan and Handa ke beech mein I got space, right? So you can even add spaces between your strings. So Muskan Handa, last name, then I want some space here. So after last name, I want space. After last name, I'm getting got. So I can either do this. I can either put a space here or I can do this thing again. Last name plus space and it will work in the same way. Muskan Handa got marks and science. Now I want space between got and marks. So I'll put a space here before marks so that this space can be embedded in my output. Muskan Handa got marks in science. Now I want a space after in and before science. So I can again do one thing. I can put a space here. So whatever spaces that I'm leaving, like here, this thing in blue and this thing in blue, these are shown in my output. Okay. So if you're putting any empty spaces, for example, after in, I'm putting this many empty spaces. It will be shown like that only in my output. You can see that this space is shown because of this thing. Okay, you can see how many spaces I have used there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that space that you are leaving in your concatenation means adding strings together. If you are adding strings together and you are leaving some space here, so that space will be shown in your output. So I am just making it 1. Muskan Handa got marks in science. Now it's working fine. The only issue that I have is I have to print 100, right? I have to print 100, right? So 100 cannot be here in my output. Why? Because it's not a text. Now, to convert this thing to text, to convert a number to text, you can do one thing, and I'll show you that right now. So I'll add a code here. So if I use a function called as toStr, 1 second, I think M1 is this. If you want to convert your number to a string, so you can use toString function for that. So what will toString do? Uh, toString will actually convert your number into Python. So into text. Okay. So if I use toString M1. Okay, so this toString. Okay, Uh, let me see the name of the function that was there. Uh, converting. Yep, yep. So it's the function called as str only. So if you want to convert a string convert a number into a string, you can use strm1. And if I do this, so it will convert this M1 into string. So you can see right now in my output, before I converted it into string, I was just getting 100. I wasn't getting any quotation marks. But when I added this strm1, that means I converted M1 into strings. Okay, I converted M1 into string. Now, when I print strm1, you can see I have a quotation mark with 100, right? You can see the quotation mark. That means this 100 is now a string, okay? Right? So if you want to check the data type of a particular data type is basically if you want to check if something is a string or a number. So how can you check that? I'll show you that also. You can just print out type and write the name of the variable for which you want to check what kind of variable that is. For example, if I do type name, if I do that, it shows str. That means it's a type of a string. Okay. If I create another variable called as age is equals to 24, right? And I do uh, type age. So if I do type age, you can see it will give me the value for age as int. That means age is a number. So if you want to check that my M1 that I have converted into string using str, is that a number or not, you can use type again. So if I use type and I just write M1 and I print this out, so I should get M1, it's still giving me int. Why? Why is it giving me int? Let me run all of this together. Mm. Okay. So if I see, it's giving me type of M1 is int. Can you guess why it's giving me int as the output right now as well? Can you guess about it? Why is it giving me type of M1 as string? Can guess about it. Nobody is judging you on this. You have to be a little vocal. So let me show you. Suppose I do one thing. I do M2 is equals to STR M1. Okay. So right now it is showing that M2 is fine. Now if I do type of M2, it will show me that it is a string. So whatever I have converted to string, I need to store it. Okay. I need to store it somewhere. If I store it in M1 only, M1 is equals to STR M1, right? So let's run this now. Let's see if M1 is of type string right now or not. So yes, you can see that str, right? That means M1 is string again. That means if you are converting this M1 into string, you have to tell your Python that, okay, I have converted this into string and store it back in M1. Okay, so that means you have a container, you have a dabba for storing rice. You took that rice out, okay? You made something out of it, and dubara you put it back into the container, okay? So you have to take it out, convert it into string, and Dubara you have to put it back in M1 to check if it has been converted into string or not. Right? Now my M1 is in string, so I can just write plus M1. Okay. Uh, okay, sorry, I have to write M1 here. Got 100 marks in science. M1. Okay. So now let's see what will be the plus sign that you have. Let's see now what will be the output. Muskan Handa got 100 marks in science. But I have to put a space between got and 100, right? So what I can do again is I can just put a space after got. That means the space will come here. Okay, so I'll just print this out and I got my output. Give me a yes if you're able to understand how we got this output, how we did addition of strings together, how we converted it into string. Give me a yes in the chat, please, if you understood this. You can give me a yes or thumbs up. Anything works. Did you understand how we are doing this? Guys, reply please. Kalyan said yes. Okay. No problem. Now I am done with adding strings. So whatever we have done here is whatever we have done, we have used plus operator to add the strings. This particular thing is called as concatenation. Okay. So if somebody asks you what is concatenation, when you're adding strings together, okay, using that plus operator, it is called as concatenation. Simple. And one more thing that you need to remember is you can only add strings into strings. You cannot add string into a number or number into a string. Okay. Now, suppose I am done with this. I created another variable. Uh, I create another variable for my subject, for my marks in maths. I created 90. I got 90 marks in maths. And I created another variable called as M3. And that stores the marks for the subject as English. So I got 96 in English. So I write uh, 96 marks in English. Okay. This thing this thing with a hash in front of it, it is a comment so that you can understand what I'm trying to write. You don't have to write it. This is a comment. If you print M2, M3 out, comments will never be printed. Comment is basically when you are writing something, you are making a short note of something so that after a few times, after a few years, when you open that notebook again, you are able to understand what I have done here. So comments are nothing. They are completely optional, but a lot of programmers write it so that the other programmer who will work after they are gone, they can understand this. Okay, so we have done concatenation of strings. We have added strings together. But if I print, if I add, okay, let's store total in this variable. So total is equals to M2 plus M3. Okay, so total is a new variable that I have made, and it should give me the total of M2, that is 90 and 96. So tell me one thing, what will it give me in output? Will it add these two together, 90 and 96? Or will it 90 plus 96 give me the answer of 186? What should be the output if I add two numbers together? If I add two numbers together, will it give me 90 and 96, or will it add these numbers and give me 186 as the output? Give me option 1 or option 2 as answer in the chat so that I can understand whatever part you are with. Okay. Do you think option 1 is correct here, or do you think option 2 is correct? Oh, no. Option 2 is the correct thing. If I print out total, these 90 and 96 are your numbers. Just say you added in maths, when you did addition in maths, it used to add those numbers together, right? So with numbers, plus operator works in the similar way. It will just add them together. But with text, it will print the text together. It will not be able to add it because they're text, right? But if you have numbers like 90, 96, or if you have a decimal number with it, 90.9 or 96.5, it will add those together and give you the output. Huh. Yes. If we use colons, right? If we use, colons, the quotation marks we'll call it. If we use quotation marks, so what we are doing right now, we are converting this M2 and M3 as text, right? M2 and M3 are both text now. So if I print out M2 plus M3, it will give me 90.9, 96.5. So when you are adding text together, when you are adding some kind of strings together, it will just add them by like printing A first, then printing B first. And when you are playing with numbers using Python, it will give you the mathematical operation as the output. Okay? Clear? Kalyan, you got the answer for your question? Okay. Now, we have played with numbers. We have played with strings. We understood how these things are working. Now, let me take you to another thing. Suppose you want to uh, store marks of 100 students in a variable, okay, in variables. I'll call it variables. So instead of making m1 is equals to 100, m2 is equals to 67, m3 is equals to 89. You have 100 students in your class and you have to store marks for science, maths, and English for all of them. So in total, you have to make 300 variables for this. So this is not a great way, right? Instead of making 300 variables, there should be a better way to do this question. So to store all these numbers together, you can use something called as list. Okay, list is a very, I'll call it a very cool data structure in Python. List help you to store multiple values in a single variable. Okay, that means if you have multiple values, like you have 5, 10 values, you can easily store it in a single variable called as list. So I'll show you how to make a list. To make a list, you have to write the name of the list. For example, I'll call it list underscore 1. Okay, this is my list. To make a list, to tell Python that this is a list, you have to use brackets. You have to use square brackets. So instead of storing marks like M1 is equals to 100, M2 is equals to 89, and so on, I can just write like this: 100, 89, 90, 45, 89, 67, 88, 90, 100, and so on. I can write like multiple values there. And this is a single variable called as list1. And it is storing so many numbers in it. Okay. So if I print out list1, print out is basically giving the output on the screen. If I print out list 1, I will get all the numbers together. So you can write 1,000 numbers here and it will still give you 1,000 numbers as the output, right? So this is what we called as list. Okay. Are you able to understand what is a list? List is a, you can say, a, a storage mechanism for storing a lot of numbers together. Okay. Now, shall I proceed further? Let's go ahead. So we understood what is list, but why we should use list. So I gave you one option. We should use list because we don't want to make 100 variables for storing 100 numbers. Okay. So if you want to hold all the marks in a single variable, you can use list. Lists are so commonly used built-in data structure. Data structure is something uh, where you store your data. Okay. So list is such a common data structure of Python, and they are capable of storing values with different data types. That means if I want, after writing 100, I can even write my name. Okay. I can even write Handa. I can even put a comma and write science and so on. I can write multiple things in the list. And if I print it out, you can see all of these things are printed out, right? So in list, you can store numbers too, you can store text too. If you want, you can store a decimal number too to check it, okay, if list works with that. So list is a data structure. Data structure is nothing but a thing that can help you to store your data. Lists are capable of storing values with different data types. That means it can store text, it can store numbers, it can store decimals, and whatever data types are present in Python. Okay, and we understood what is list. Okay, now suppose I stored 100, like I stored, let me store 100, let me write it here. If I stored 100, 90, 100, 100, 90, 90, 100, 100, 100. Right now, I have a small list. I don't have a huge list that contains hundreds of data. I have like 20, 30 data right now. Okay. Now, suppose I'm working somewhere. I'm working as a data analyst or Python developer somewhere. And my boss asked me, Ki Muskan, tell me how many how many students got 100 marks. Okay, I have to solve one question. He asked me how many students got 100 marks. Okay. So basically what I have to do, I have to count the occurrence of 100 in my list. Okay. So I have a list. I have stored my marks in that list. So I have to count how many times 100 occurs in the list. So in list, whenever you are using list, you have so many cool functions that you can apply on list that can help you to make your work easier. Instead of going here and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can also do one thing. You can just write list, the name of your list. That is, for my list, it's called as list underscore one, and I'll use dot count. And whatever I want to count, I want to count how many times 100 occurs. So I'll put 100. Now, it gives me 2 as my output. Can you guess why it gives me 2 as my output? List one dot count gives me 2 as my output. Can you guess why 2 only I'm getting as the output? I wanted to count how many students got 100 marks, right? So I have so many things, like I have so many hundreds here. And if I just print it out, right now it's giving 8. Why it was giving me 2? Because I forgot to put a comma here. So this whole string was considered as string. So when I put a comma, that means they are different values. Now it's giving me how many values? It gives me 8 values. Like 8 students got 100 marks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Now, suppose I want to check how many students got 90 marks. So I can just write 90 in my brackets and I'll print it out again. I'll write list underscore one dot count and you can check for 90. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this is a decimal. This is 90.8. So it will not be counted. So I only have 4 occurrences of 90. But if I write 90.8, it will give me only one as my output because 90.8 occurs only one in the list. Okay. Now, what will happen, Muskan, if you want to count how many times your name is there in the list? Okay. So we can also count my name. But for name, the only thing that you need to do is you need to put quotation marks here, nothing else. So if I want to count how many times Muskan is there in my list, I'll just put quotation mark here, list one dot count Muskan, because every text is written with the help of quotation marks. So I'll just write list one dot count Muskan, and it shows me one. Can you guess why Muskan is giving only one as the output? There's some kind of error. Can you tell me why? So whenever you are doing this thing, whenever I added Muskan here, I did not run this code block. That means it still considers that only Muskan is one because I have not run it. So whenever you add data in your Excel file or something, you refresh it, right? So that you can see the new data. In the same way, you have to do this thing again. You have to run this code block again. After you have run this, it is now updated. So that means all these Muskan will be updated here. Now, if I run this now, list underscore one dot count, I can see 5 Muskans are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5. Okay, so I can count the occurrence of number, how many times a number is there, how many times, what do you call it? A string is there by using quotation marks. So list underscore one dot count, Handa is only once. If I want to count signs, let me count that also. First, let me add it here. Okay. Now, after you have added this thing into your list, please don't forget to run your code block. That is this block. It shows run cell option, right? You have to run this always and then just use your function on the list. So right now it's also showing Handa as, oh sorry, I'm using Handa. Handa is 1. I have to print out how many times science is there in my list. So you can see it's showing sciences 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So list is such a cool data structure to work with. It simplifies your what do you call it? Uh, your work so much. Now, suppose your boss has told you, like you're working somewhere and your boss has told you that you have to remove few items from this list. Okay, there are so many items from this list. I don't want few items. Okay, so if I want to remove few items, I can use a method called as pop. Let me show that to you. So if I do list underscore one dot pop, right, and then I print list underscore one. So pop is nothing. Pop will do what? By default, pop will remove the last item that is in your list. So it should remove this signs. Okay. So if I use list one dot pop and then print list one out, so you can see, let me make it a little smaller. You can see that I am getting 3 sciences right now. Why? Because I have not run this. Let me run this too. Okay. List one dot pop and put a bracket here. Okay. List one dot pop and print list one. Now you can see instead of 3 signs that was there in my output, I'm getting only 2. That means the last value has been removed. Okay. So if I do the pop again, if I run this code shell again, That means the last value that was this now, this will also be removed. So this part, this signs are removed. I'm only getting the list till here, till this part. If I run this again, so that means this value will also be removed. So I'm only getting Muskan, 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 and this I have run pop 3 times. So it has deleted the 3 last items from my list. Okay. So I'll end the class here. If you have any doubts, please go ahead and ask. I have the actual batch for Python at 8, so I have to take out some time for that also. If you have any doubts, you can ask. And if you are like fine with the class, if you enjoyed the class, um, thank you so much for joining. And from my end, it's done. If you want to leave, you can. If you have any doubts, you can write in the chat, and I'll be very happy to answer them. I have given you all the permission to unmute yourself. If you want to unmute or say something, you can unmute. Okay, I think no doubts. Thank you so much for joining. Bye bye.